Do you spend your life playing defense, constantly trying to protect the lifestyle you've built, the mortgage, the house, the cars, whatever it is, instead of going on offense and fighting for that life of freedom and fulfillment you deserve and desire? That's the topic of today's episode. Of course, this is the Freedom Club podcast. I am your host, Kurt Mercadante. And today's episode was originally live streamed in the Freedom Club community. You've heard me pitch it before. If you're not a member, I want you to go right now to Facebook. I want you to search for the Freedom Club community. I want you to apply to join, and I want you there now so you can join the live streams of these podcasts. And by the way, all my interviews, all my Wednesday interviews are live streamed there. You can participate in the discussion as it happens. Go now to the Freedom Club community and join it. And I'm very happy now to present to you today's episode, which is about playing a life of defense instead of going on offense.
Welcome to the Freedom Club podcast, where we strive to pull you out of your life of quiet desperation, out of your comfort zone of misery, and propel you into a life of freedom and fulfillment. And now, here's your host for this journey, international speaker and coach, and serial entrepreneur, Kurt Mercadante.
This is the Freedom Club podcast and the Freedom Club community on Facebook. If you are listening to this via my podcast, I also live stream these episodes and all my interviews in the Freedom Club community, which is my private Facebook group. If you are not a member of the Freedom Club community, what the hell is wrong with you? Go to Facebook right now, type in the Freedom Club community in the search bar. You will see my beard and my ugly mug. That's the correct group. Go in. We'll ask you a couple questions before you're approved to join. Answer those questions. You're in, and you can participate in these live streams moving forward. So today, I want to talk a little bit about World War II. So specifically, I'm reading this excellent book, D-Day. It's about the climactic battle of World War II. It's by historian Stephen F. Ambrose. Excellent book. Gives the accounts not only of the commanders, Rommel and Eisenhower, but specific stories about, the Navy Seabees who did demolition work, the people in the LSTs who were landing on the beaches, the paratroopers, the training that went in, the months and months of training that went into this. And so there's a number of pieces I want to touch on today. First, Frederick the Great, who was the Prussian emperor, was a hero of Hitler. Hitler looked up to him, right? And Frederick the Great once said, "He who defends everything defends nothing." Now, I'm going to come back to that quote in a little bit. But early in the war, when the Germans were advancing, when the Germans were winning, they were constantly on the offensive, right? These lightning strikes, and they won battles before the opposition even knew there was a battle happening, right? And so they kept gaining ground. Later in the war, especially by the time D-Day had come around, Germany found itself in a two-front war, right? They were in a pitched battle with the Red Army in Russia. The Royal Air Force had started bombing the hell out of Berlin and Germany. And so that tied up the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, to defend the skies over Berlin. And then it had to create what they called the Atlantic Wall. He put Rommel in charge of trying to make an impenetrable fortress in France, right? So that the Allies would have a difficult time doing it. In short, he came to totally ignore the quote that his hero Frederick the Great had come about with. Germany had come into a situation where they had to defend everything. And in that case, they were defending nothing. Instead of being on the offensive, they were fighting a two-front war, defending Germany in a pitched battle with the Red Army and defending the Atlantic Wall. And so, recently I had a podcast interview with Brandon Steiner of Steiner Sports, and he talked about what he called the stripper box, where a stripper is young, man or woman, comes out early, wants to make some money, becomes a stripper, starts making a shitload of money, and builds up a lifestyle based on that money. Cars, homes, mortgage, whatever it is. And after doing that for a while, he or she is like, well, I don't want to strip anymore. But they look at the lifestyle they've created, the cars, the mortgage, and they're like, well, I can't do anything else. I can't take a break because I'm making this money. I gotta keep this lifestyle. So they keep stripping and stripping and stripping. Finally, 40 years goes by, and he or she realizes, I'm trapped being a stripper. In essence, go back to that Frederick the Great quote, they're defending everything. They have to defend the cars. They have to defend the mortgage. They have to defend the lifestyle. And so they're not able to go on the offensive in their life to achieve what Brandon calls their hopes and dreams. I call it your life vision. They're defending everything. It's the same thing that Germany faced, and the mistake they made in World War II. We often do it in our lives. We take a job that we either just outwardly hate, or that puts us in that quiet life of quiet desperation, that comfort zone of misery, and we keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and we build up this lifestyle so that maybe we get into our 30s or 40s and we're on the defensive. Another thing, and again, I'm talking about the book D-Day by Stephen F. Ambrose. One thing that I found interesting was this. In D-Day, except for the generals, et cetera, and people in leadership, many of the soldiers they used were newbies. They were new recruits. They were people who had not been in battle before. And what they found was the longer you were in battle, the more cautious you became. Totally understandable. The more you felt like you were living on borrowed time, and you played just to stay alive. You had seen the horrors of battle. So if you were in there 2 or 3 years, you were more cautious and playing to stay alive. And so on D-Day, they used a lot of fresh recruits who had never seen battle before, who were training like hell for months in bad weather in England, and they were ready to go and take it to the Germans, right? They wanted to take it to the Germans, and they were ready to do it. And so they got out of those landing craft on the beaches, and they were ready to go. Think of your life. And every day I get calls from people, and they're in their 40s or 50s. And they look back over their lives, right? And when you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, the world is your oyster. You come out. You're not jaded yet. You're ready to take risks. You're ready to go on the offensive every single day. But then you get in your 30s or 40s, you get married, you start having kids, you have a mortgage, you have nice cars, and all of a sudden you start playing not to lose. You start playing just to stay alive. You start defending everything. I referred earlier to that Frederick the Great quote, he who defends everything defends nothing. And you get to your 40s or your 50s, you're playing not to lose, but you're not happy. You don't have that sense of fulfillment. But you're too scared to go on the offensive for fear that you're going to lose what you have. Brandon Steiner called it that stripper box. And so what I'd like you to challenge you to do this week is this. I want you to really take an audit of your life and figure out, are you playing not to lose? Are you playing to defend everything you have, whether it's the cars, whether it's the mortgage, whatever it is, that lifestyle? And are those things really giving you fulfillment? Listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm a fan of money. I love money. I'm a free market guy. I'm a capitalist. But how you look at money, is money about buying you things that you don't need that are then going to put you in that box, that are going to build a prison so that you can't go on the offensive, so you can't go and live that life of fulfillment you want? Or is money a tool that is going to allow you to, moving forward, purchase those things that are going to give you fulfillment? Go on that travel with your wife, your husband, your kids. Allow you to have enough financial freedom so you can take 3 weeks off in the spring without fear of defending your lifestyle, but taking 3 weeks off in the spring and going to Italy, traveling. Are you building a lifestyle in which you have to defend everything, in which case you are defending nothing, in which you are not going on the offensive, but you live a life of defense where you're defending your cars, defending your mortgage? You can't go on the offense. I had a call with a guy yesterday, and he was in a situation where he was not in a toxic job. But you know how he described his job? Well, I could keep doing this till I'm 65. I'm making good money. And I feel grateful because I was in a toxic job before, and I could keep doing this for a while. But as he described his life, he said he had trouble being present in his job. He spent most of his days reading magazine articles, reading books. He wanted to escape into his imagination because his job wasn't challenging him. He said his job wasn't challenging him, and he was bored. In many cases, that life of boredom, I call it quiet desperation, I call it that comfort zone of misery, is worse than one in which you are constantly under attack, maybe a toxic job, a job you hate, a lifestyle you hate. Because in many cases, when you're in a job you hate, a lifestyle you hate, it gets you fired up. It gets you fired up to make a change. But often when we're in that life of quiet desperation, we say to ourselves, well, I'm making good money. I could stay here for a decade or two. I've bought my cars. I've bought my mortgage. I don't want to upset that boat. I got to defend what I have. So I'm not going to go on the offensive in my life. And you end up in that comfort zone of misery, maybe till age 65. So I challenge you today. I want you to audit your life. Are you living a life in which you are constantly on the defensive to defend what you have? And is that leading to a life of quiet desperation, to a comfort zone of misery? And then I want you to look back and I want you to think back to when you were in your 20s, to when the world was your oyster, when you didn't worry about having a safety net and defending everything. You were on the offensive every single day. How can you recapture that? You know, on D-Day, when Eisenhower decided to go, he delayed it by a day because of weather. But then he decided, no contingencies. We've trained. It's all or nothing. We're going to save the world this week, or we're not going to win at all. We're not going to save it at all. They went in. They went in with the weather, the fog. Shit happened. People landed in wrong areas. Paratroopers, the fog, the planes were coming in. Some of them at 150 miles an hour. Some of them flying at 500 feet. And paratroopers found themselves in the middle of fields all alone without their brethren. They had to figure shit out. There was no safety net. They had to win or die. They had to save the world or continue under German occupation. When we're in our 20s, often we have that mentality. I'm going to win or die trying. But again, we get into our 30s or 40s and it's all about a defensive battle. We play not to lose. We play scared. In what areas of your life can you begin right now starting to play not to lose, to go on the offensive, to decide that this is my life? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of being bored. I'm sick and tired of not being challenged. I'm sick and tired of not having fulfillment. And I'm going to take the battle to life instead of letting life take the battle to me. That is your challenge for this week. This is the Freedom Club Podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Mercadante. And for those of you who are in the Freedom Club community watching live, welcome. Eric, Bobby, Michael, how y'all doing? I know Sully was here. Dan, how's it going, Dan? Pete? Matt, it's funny because joining the military for me was going on offensive in my life instead of bogging down. Yeah, right. Exactly. When I had by the way, Matt, I really want to get to Normandy. Absolutely. It's on my list of places to go. We're going to go to, and actually went, so I have family in Anzio, Italy, of course, where there was a famous battle. And there's an American cemetery in Anzio, and we were there in August, and it was closed by the time we got there. We're going back this May, and so that's on our list to go to that cemetery. But when I was in my agency, I was living a defensive battle every single day. 7 figures, got to defend that. Nice house, mortgage, got to defend that. You know, one reason we left Illinois was to defend less. I mean, we were paying $8,000 a year in property taxes for nothing. We got no services. We lived 70 miles outside the city. It was bullshit. But that's Illinois. You know, we're going to tax the hell out of you and then we're going to waste your money. And that $8,000 a year became something else I was defending. We left. Pay a fraction of that here for a better quality of life in South Carolina. But I lived a life in which I was living a defensive battle every day. And I said, screw it. And as many of you know, I shut down my agency overnight. And ever since that day, I've been on the offensive every single day. And I get stoked when I have to do sales. I get stoked when I get to help save someone's life by speaking with them, just having a one-on-one conversation when they're in my groups. When I'm talking to you here, I mean, this morning I woke up, I read my book, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm going on the offensive with a message about something I just read today. So, anyone else have any questions for me? If not, I want to thank you all for joining today. If you're watching this on the replay later, please throw your questions in here. As you know, I pop in the Freedom Club community every day. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being a member of this community. If you're a new member, thanks for being here. If you are a veteran member of the Freedom Club community, I really appreciate you being a member. I do these live streams from time to time, and then I use the live streams in my podcast, the Freedom Club podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. There's some links in the About Us of the Freedom Club community Facebook group. So I urge you to download those, subscribe. We have a listener ship around the globe. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. This has been a little live stream in the Freedom Club community. I'll talk to you all soon.